Welcome to Coming Clean with Indy Lee, a podcast series about living with passion, acting with purpose, and being fully present. I'm your host, Indy Lee. On today's episode, I am so excited I get to interview Michael Ahmad, beauty educator, digital creator, and dear friend. Michael, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Indy. I'm so excited to be here.
I know. I'm actually really excited about this. I'm really nervous because this is the first time I've done this via, as I drop everything all over the place, done this via FaceTime. But, difficult times calls for, trying to wing it and figure this out differently.
Yeah, what a great time to connect, too.
I know. How are you doing with this new pandemic and being kind of sequestered? I don't know how else to say. I hate the term social distancing. I am now using it physical distancing because we shouldn't be socially distancing.
Yeah, absolutely. We should be socially connected.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting. It's not a linear progression, this process of and this pandemic. I think some days are up, some days are down. It's really revealing the cracks in, I think, our collective social masks. I think a lot of us conflate our identities with our routines. So to be taken away from those routines feels incredibly destabilizing. And I think it implies larger conversations about identity. So it's kind of interesting having to reconnect to who we are when we're stripped away from all of our defense mechanisms, our coping tools. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, they call this like the great pause. And I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, this is really a time for us to pause and figure out who we want to be going forward. And I think in experiences like this, we get to recreate who we want to be going forward and what we want our life to look like going forward. I was saying the other day on Mindful Monday, I realized I needed, in air quotes so much, and it truly wasn't a need. It was just a want. And what I need is very different. For me, it's kind of getting back to my roots also. I've been spending a lot of time in the greenhouse, doing a lot more meditating. I'm not exercising and I'm making excuses for it. And I'm allowing myself to make excuses for it, but that stops today. Like I'm not feeling as good as I should be physically. And I'm like, you know what? Because I have to move.
Yeah.
I've been watching. You do it. You're like every day. You're inspiring about this.
But I think it's important to demystify it because I don't want to do it every day. It's habitual. It's a behavior that I've gotten into the rhythm of, and I know that my body relies on it. And it's one of the few controllables that I have in this environment. Cortisol is a chemical response in our bodies. If we don't physically exert it, it kind of poisons us. So I know that I'm not my best when I am being poisoned. So I have to just handle it.
All right. So I guess it's time for me to get back onto the treadmill and on my Pilates reformer, AKA the biggest paperweight that I have in the house because I haven't gotten on it. I know. Please. I had a choice of, do I want a Pilates reformer or do I want like a infrared sauna? And I said, I'm going to get into great shape. So I decided to get the Pilates reformer. Hashtag regrets. I can't even believe it. So what's interesting? I realized today, do you know the day we actually quote unquote met or was connected? We're connected.
Was it today?
Nope.
When was it?
It was on your wedding day.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That's right.
Is that nuts?
No, that is so nuts. It's interesting because I always tell the story of how we connected to people because I think it's so charming, but I guess I never put two and two together that it was the actual day of my wedding.
It was. So for those listeners out there, I was visiting Nordstrom and it was in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
I was in Park Meadows and I went and just to kind of go to all the Nordstroms, I try to meet the team there because they really are the feet on the ground, boots on the ground when we're not in the store. And so I love to meet everybody. And so I got there and they said, oh my God, Michael is so upset because he's not here today, but he really loves your products and he really wanted to meet you, but he's getting married. I'm like, well, that's a good reason for him not to be here. I was like, they're like, well, you could FaceTime him. I'm like, what? It's his wedding day. They're like, oh, no, it's fine. So I don't remember if I actually recorded a video or we FaceTimed, but it was on your wedding day.
Yeah. I remember you actually did both. I got a FaceTime from one of the other managers at Park Meadows. I didn't realize you were on the other line. I obviously wasn't able to answer. And then you followed me on Instagram and sent me a video.
That's right.
And that's how we connected.
Yep. And now look at us.
I know, but I lost my mind because at the time I was an assistant department manager at Nordstrom. I was infatuated with the entire line. I had been really embracing my clean beauty conversion. So I fell in love with the entire line and I was telling everyone about it. I got everyone in the department to rally around it. So when I found out that you were going to be there and I couldn't meet you, I lost my mind. I was so upset. So it was such a treat.
And look, you know what? It all ended really well because as a result, we've actually become good friends. So that's what I love about social media and what I'm doing and going into stores is you make these incredible relationships that you probably never would have had that connection to before. And it allows you to stay connected to them in ways that, well, when I was young, was not possible because there was no internet because I'm old, but honest.
As if.
but I mean, we are able to stay connected, whether it's via texting or, you know, chatting back and forth on comments. But then when we're in a city where we know each other, you know, is going to be there, we make it a point to meet up. So we don't skip a beat. It's kind of cool. I actually think it's quite beautiful when you really put it together and you say how people meet these days and the relationships that you can make that are deep bonding relationships. And they're really first developed over social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. It's a tool that can be distancing, but it's also a tool that can bring incredible intimacy between people, which I think is so lovely. It's all about how you use it. And to your credit, Indy, it's a very unique practice that you engage so regularly with your community directly. I mean, you're the one who's answering the messages. You're the one who is connecting with everyone. So I think that our meeting is very serendipitous and beautiful, but it's also a testament to the fact that you're on the ground doing the work. You're meeting people. You're filtering the feedback. You are connecting. And I think that's so special.
Thank you. I love what I do. And you know that. I mean, this is so much more than products on a shelf for me. And I think that's true for, I would say a large portion, like significantly majority of those in the clean space this was done for a very different reason. It wasn't products on a shelf. It was to create change and to create community. And I'm really lucky to be in it. So tell me, how did you get into this and this being the beauty space? And then how you became the Bearded Beauty Bible. So, which is his Instagram handle, which I will give you at the end. It will be in show notes, but you have to follow him, not only for his education, but his positivity. And oh my God, he doesn't even mean it, but his comedy is fantastic. Your timing is always spot on. But how did you get into this?
It was a very odd journey. And I kind of landed in the beauty space. My backstory is when I was really, really young, I started off as a professional stage actor. Around.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
That's what I did as a child. My very first main stage production, I was Timmy and Timmy the Tooth. It was, I know it's a very strange backstory, but I started off kind of as an actor. And that's what I eventually pursued my degree in education at the University of San Diego. But when I was around 17, 18, I started modeling. And of course, through the process of, meeting people and doing things, I got a lot of exposure to different beauty products and different beauty practices, which I thought were kind of interesting. When I was, 2009? I don't even know how old I was. I started a pop music alter ego. So I released 2 studio albums and I did that. And that also carried me into...
This is awesome. I'm loving this podcast already.
It's a really bizarre, complex narrative. But through all of these creative endeavors, and through working in music and through working in modeling and stage, there are so many discourses about beauty. There are so many specific practices, so many levers that people like to pull, misinformation, good information. And after doing that for years and years, I wanted to take a step back from the industry because I was feeling like it wasn't healthy. So I said, I'm going to take all of this information that I've gleaned over these various lifetimes and these various things and try to mobilize them and give people a way to hopefully navigate beauty more effectively. So really that was where Bearded Beauty Bible came from. It was intended to kind of leverage all of those learnings from all of those different industries and share them with people so that they could make more informed choices as consumers. that's kind of how it was born. I was working at Nordstrom at the time, and that kind of exposure is really interesting. When I was working at Nordstrom, I developed really aggressive cystic acne, which was, I had perfect skin my whole life. I didn't know where it came from. And it took me a long time to connect the fact that when you are in the beauty space and you're constantly bombarded with samples and new products and unregulated toxins in those products, your skin reacts a very unique way. And it took about 2.5 years for the cystic acne to resolve because I didn't know what was causing it. And I think the humbling and sad reality is that so many people say, well, what is it that I need to use to fix my skin? What is it that I need to use to fix everything?
I get that all the time. Like they think there's a magic pill or there's that one ingredient, and they forget that every body is completely different. So what's going to be for you is not going to be the same for me. Yeah, no, keep going. This is cool.
Well, absolutely. I think it's peculiar because people want that magic pill, but at the same time, it's so often not what you need to be using. It's what you need to discontinue from use. Once you remove the barrage of toxins, your skin heals. And that's where my clean beauty awakening was. It's interesting. Our ad tech counter manager at the time, her name was Ashley, kept encouraging me to use this specific face oil. And I resisted it. And I was like, natural beauty I don't need an essential oil, honey. What I need is like some aggressive something to get rid of this problem. So I kind of thought it was a joke at the time. But as soon as I switched over to using that product, my skin, the cysts went away within a month and a half. And then my skin completely resolved within 3 months. And that was the turning point for me. That was when I was like, oh my gosh, I've been causing this problem in my attempts to resolve it. That paired with the backstory of experiencing all of these different subsets of beauty made me just really want to offer resources to support and help people.
And you are. I mean, for those of you who don't follow Michael, which you need, as again, another huge plug, and it isn't a plug, it's because you do these 1-minute reviews, which I didn't think it was possible to talk that fast and get that much education in 1 minute, but you break it down in a way that everybody can understand. And it's sort of like that, oh, duh, okay, yep, okay, that's what I need, or that's not why I need that. How did you start even that? And how long does it take you to film each one? I just need to know because I'm like, how many takes do you do?
Well, I started doing 1-minute reviews because I just wanted to meet the public where they are, which is right now we're a little bit ADD, we're impatient, and we want the information and we want it fast. And that's how it was working with consumers too. People want to know exactly what a product does, why they should buy it, and they want to be able to get that information as quickly as possible. So I just started filming these 1-minute reviews to convey it as concisely as possible. And, they, sometimes they come very easily. It'll take me 1 or 2 takes to nail it. And then there are times where it'll take me maybe 60, 70 tries.
Oh, okay, I feel better about when I do my Mindful Mondays. I'm like, oh, and I like channel your inner Michael. Channel your inner Michael. You can get this done. And I'm like, nope. Click. Because I have this impression, and I make this up in my head, in the absence of information, we make it up, that you get it done in like 2 takes.
Well, I wish that was the case. I would film a lot more if that were true.
Oh my gosh. And by the way, so true. Just a side note on the cystic acne. I had it it was incredible. Couldn't touch my face for years. And then I went to using one oil and my cystic acne completely changed. And and people like, oh, if you have acne, you shouldn't be using, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. It's using the right oil, as you know, and making sure it's non-comedogenic. But it was just like that. And I've never gone back. So I'm so with you on that. So your online presence focuses a lot on the 360 approach to wellness, right? You're talking fitness, you're talking self-care, you're talking music, like things, just rants, which by the way, to me is an approach to wellness too, because you're letting off steam or you're expressing yourself and you're enjoying yourself. So to me, that is a form of wellness, as is having a drink with friends every once in a while. How all those aspects those are all very independent thoughts, right? So you have your almost comedy things when you're joking about your rants, what you would say to Justin. Then you have, your wellness, and then you show us your tarot cards, which I really want a reading one day. That's a plug. Hopefully he'll say yes. And then you're showing beauty. So it's all over, but they're so independent, right? How did that awakening happen for you that you were going to bring all of that onto your channel? And when I say channel, you pretty much live on Instagram.
Yeah. I would say discovering the connectivity and the reliance of each of those elements came from failing miserably at each one independently. I do think, you can't really address the quality of your skin without addressing your nutrition. You can't address your nutrition without discussing your fitness. You can't address your fitness if you have low spirits and no energy to do it. So you really have to address kind of the internal dialogue with yourself. If you try to address one piece of this beautiful, interdependent, cyclical puzzle, you'll never arrive where you're trying to go. So I think it's important to really find the connective tissue between those things. They seem so disparate, and I do think that they're presented as such independent, mutually exclusive concepts, but they are all intimately tied and linked.
No, I mean, I completely agree, because I think that just like for me, the brand has been about lifestyle. For you, this is about lifestyle, and lifestyle isn't just one thing. You're not just a fitness influencer. You're not just this. You're all things. And I don't think anybody is just one thing. You just have done such a wonderful job of showing all of it to everybody in a very authentic way, and sharing who you are and being vulnerable too when you're frustrated with something. Because I know, listen, you and I both have had people saying not some nice things. Sometimes people get very heated, and you address it in a way that, thank you for this, but no, you know, and you disarm people too, but you don't. Even though you do it in your rants, because I just love your rants. Like, that's my favorite thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I send to people on our team, I'm like, okay, he's just going on a rant. You've got to watch this. But you do it in a disarming way that is not attacking, but it's like, hey, listen, this is who I am. This is why I'm doing it. If you don't want to follow me, don't follow me. This is why I'm passionate. And it comes across actually loving in some sense too. So like, kudos to you, Michael, for being able to do that, because it's hard.
Yeah, it's easier some days than others. People can oftentimes be, I don't know, sometimes the feedback isn't constructive and it's not offered to have a conversation. But yeah, I think it's important, if you're not going to stand behind what you say 100%, if you're not going to really feel vindicated and strongly about the content you're creating and the message that you're conveying, I just don't think that there's really a point in saying it. So it's okay.
If I had an applause button right now, I would be hitting it. I probably is somewhere on this board I'm using, and I should probably label it. But hell yes. Yeah. Hell yes. Take a stance. And it's hard as a brand. It is hard. Like as I am a brand.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah.
I have to really be very careful, but I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I think that's part of, that's part of what this podcast is all about, your passion. And I'm passionate about empowering others. And I maybe it's my Libra side that I see so many different sides to it. Like of course I'm a people pleaser person as well, but it's don't say something unless you feel strongly about it. And I'm also about, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that book by Robert Fulghum, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. It's so true. If we got back to that basics, boy, wouldn't Instagram be a much happier place. But how do you handle, like, when you get that strong post or you hit something in terms of adversity, how do you handle it?
Well, I think the first stage in that process is really assessing what's being said. Sometimes people can have a gruff demeanor about them, but have the best intentions. So you can always tell if a conversation is being started or if a comment is being made because someone lacks clarity, because they are seeking to discuss. And even if it's not aligned with my perspective, especially if it's not aligned with my perspective, I will engage with and value every opportunity to converse. However, there are oftentimes people whose, again, objective is not to engage in conversation. It's to demean, belittle, attack. And when I've assessed that is someone's starting point. That's the jumping off point for negotiation. Then there is no negotiation. I will not engage. I will not indulge that behavior because nothing good stands to come of it. And I mean, it's a learned behavior.
True.
I've learned to not do that because in the instances where I have, it leads you down a rabbit hole into nowhere. And it ends up kind of evoking not the best part of yourself because you're positioned in a way where you feel defensive and you feel angry. And how could somebody, why would they? And it takes you to a place where it's, it's not the best snapshot of who you are. So just don't do it.
And for me, when someone does that, because I'm a people pleaser, I take it personally. Like for me, it's like a personal attack. Oh my God, I hurt them. What did I do wrong? How am I going to make them like me again? And as a brand and as somebody who's out there in the public, and people don't really know this. I mean, you and I've had the conversation. I'm very shy, even though my persona is out there, but I'm an extroverted introvert. I take it, well, how do I fix it? How am I going to make it better for them? And what I've realized, and over time, is that really has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with me. This is just them pushing their agenda on something they saw or something that I might have triggered, or they're just having a bad day and they might not like my shirt, and they're gonna comment.
Yeah.
But you have done such a great job with it because I know you've gotten a lot of it. And I just think you've done such a beautiful job the way you're handling it.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. And I do think it's important to something you just said about like, what did I do wrong? What did I do to hurt them? I think it's such a beautiful and unique impulse for people to look inward when these things happen, to say, what could I have done differently? Is there a possibility that I stepped out of line? Let me comb through what I've said and see if I said anything inflammatory or potentially hurtful. But when I find myself spiraling through that process, it's interesting to say, okay, if the other person was looking inward this much, would they have ever written such a nasty, hateful comment? Would they have ever sent me this hurtful message? And the answer is no. So we can stop looking inward if they're not doing it.
No, that's good. Thank you. I hope everybody is taking notes on this because that's so true. That is so true. And I need to look at that a little bit more. I'm lucky. I'm really, knock on wood, I do not get a lot of hate. I don't know. Hopefully this is not that inviting for people to do that. And maybe it's just because I put it out to the universe, but I don't. But when I do, I take it so personally and I go right to exactly what I said. And I never, I have to look at that a little bit. I'm going to be putting like notes for myself. Go back to minute this on my podcast with Michael. Cause I really, it's hard in the moment. We have that knee gut reaction too. So a little something that some people don't know is you are actually the education executive for one of the world's leading clean brands. One that I absolutely love, Herbivore, but they're now just called Herbivore, right?
That's Herbivore Botanicals.
Yeah, because I always see it and I'm like, it just says Herbivore and thing. So Herbivore Botanicals, which I think Alex and Julia are two very special human beings, and I have so much respect for them and so much respect for the brand. And it's one of the brands that I also have on my vanity too. And I love that. And I love buying it because it makes me happy to buy and support other brands. So how did you go from where you were, right? So where you were truly educating in terms of being, at Nordstrom to now, education executive?
Yeah. I was working at Nordstrom. I was in the process of my clean beauty awakening. I fell in love with indie. I fell in love with Herbivore. And I started creating a lot of content around it. And I did a full brand product review from Herbivore. And it was peculiar because we had a brand rep in the store who worked for a different company that kind of vanished from our store. I had no idea where they had gone. And then I discovered later that they became the hiring manager at Herbivore. But before I knew that, I saw the posting on Instagram. I applied for the job. And he's the one who ended up reaching out to me. And he was like, funny story. I know, it's crazy. He was like, such a small world. How funny that I'm now the hiring manager for Herbivore. So he actually saw my product review video. He showed it to the founders, and then I connected, interviewed, and secured the position, which is awesome. I started off as the education executive, and then I am now the national education manager, which is really exciting.
That's incredible. That's incredible. They are
Yeah.
so lucky to have you. So lucky to have you. And
Thank you.
I listen, and I know you feel lucky to have them too, because like our brand, I get the sense, and this is just a sense, that they also feel like their team is their family.
Absolutely. Alex and Julia are really remarkable. Their methodologies, their process of creation, everything they do it feels like a family and a community of artists. It is wonderful to feel valued every day. It is wonderful to ethically stand behind what we're doing. And I think you can empathize and understand this better than most people. Oftentimes in the beauty space, people will use humanity as a marketing tactic. They do the right thing, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's going to look really good on a billboard somewhere.
Yes.
But having the interface with Alex and Julia and being able to work side by side with them, it's so beautiful to know that they care. And the remarkable thing is people don't even see half of what they do because they're not doing it to glean any sort of clout in the industry or generate appearances. They're doing it because it's the right thing to do, which I think is so beautiful.
No, well, that's why I love the brand. And that's when I saw that when you went through, I'm like, that was a really smart hire. That was a great hire when I saw you went over there. And I was like, that is so perfectly matched. So perfectly matched. Because I do get this sense from, obviously I've met them and spoken with them and been on panels with Alex. They're also a little bit like us, I would say, probably more. Woo-woo, right? Are they?
Oh yeah, we're very woo-woo.
Yeah, like you and I both are woo-woo. Most people are starting to get that from me, but I'm pretty freaking woo-woo. I'm a Buddhist. I've been practicing Buddhist for over 20 years. I love that it's not like it's not on brand for my brand, but that's not a tenet of our brand. Whereas I do feel that it is a tenet to theirs with crystals and how they're bringing it in. So I think it's so cool to watch that unfold and see as they bring out products, they talk about the crystals and powers of the crystals. And to me, it speaks to me because I have right over there, you can't see it, but a dish of crystals. And I have them through my office, just like I have plants throughout my office. And I think right now, that's what people need. I think more people letting their woo-woo freak flag fly is important, because I think that we've closeted it for a while because we thought that you have to be a certain, corporate stereotype. And I think the paradigm is shifting. Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see it becoming more universally practiced because everyone's a little woo-woo. And I don't know, it's far be it from me or anyone really to, be disparaging towards something that gives someone strength or nourishes their spirit. It's like whatever form it takes, whether it's a card, whether it's a crystal, whether it's little animal figurines and tchotchkes in your house, whatever inspires you and makes you feel better and more capable, by all means, practice that.
So how did you get into tarot cards? Because I have to ask, because I'm plugging for you to do a reading for me. Because
totally will.
Okay, good.
Everybody, I've been actually reading. Commitment. I've actually been reading tarot since I was about 11. And it sounds so silly, but I was really into the original Charmed series, and I'm talking Shannon Doherty.
Oh my God.
The original seasons 1 through 3. But I was really drawn to that realm, so I just wanted to start reading. And it's interesting because for me, people are like, do you really think that spirits are drawing the cards and speaking to you? And that's not really, that question's neither here nor there for me. I think what it is it's a focal point. It's a vessel. It's a way to focus energy. So whether there are spirits on the other side of some realm pulling the cards for you to communicate, or whether it's all happenstance, but meaningful messages are being imparted and helping you make more constructive choices or be a better person, who cares? It's like, do crystals really vibrate, or do you really think they make you better? It's not here nor there. do they make you better, and do they make you feel more empowered?
Is there a way to hug you through the phone? Because that's how, the universe is always listening, right? And again, that's not saying that the universe is channeling and having you pull that card either. But I do think it listens with intention. So when you pull various cards, or you have a mantra that you meditate to, or you have crystals that you believe in, that exact thing, that focuses your mind to be present and be mindful of that thought. And thoughts become belief.
Absolutely.
And belief becomes reality. Whatever that reality looks like for you, that becomes your life. So, and I think that's what the law of attraction is about. And you can have that in every different religion, every different spiritual practice, but that's really what it is. It's being present, and it's being mindful and shifting your mindset to focus. Because I think personally that we are so out there in terms of bombarded with so many different things, whether it's, our work life, it's our home life, it's what's on social, it's what's coming on the news, it's what you're watching. And we're so radiant in our thoughts out there, and we're not necessarily as focused as we can be. And I think it's when we have that focus where your true power lies. And that's when you can manifest things, because you're focusing on, whether it's the universe is then bringing it, or you're just seeing it because you're focused. Who knows? You can call it whatever you want. But I think that's what I've always thought tarot cards were and about, and is bringing focus into what you're seeing in your life and letting you see, oh, well, that could mean that for me. And that's how I'm going to interpret it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I read for myself every single morning. I have for years.
I know. And you share that on social, and I love that.
It's interesting because the same messages, when there's a lesson that needs to be learned, when there is an obstacle that I'm going to face regularly, it is remarkable how concise and clear the universe is in articulating that to me. It does not mince words. It's peculiar how clear the message is, and how loudly it will be reiterated until you hear it. So again, whether that is me assigning meaning to the cards because it's something I know is an opportunity, or whether that is, a larger force or the universe revealing a message to me, it does definitely change the trajectory of my day. It changes how I interact with people, how I perceive the world around me. And I think that's helpful. It's incredibly helpful.
Oh, I agree. And I think that whether you're doing it through playing tarot cards or you're doing it through meditation, the universe is going to show you exactly what you need to see if you're willing to look at it and you're willing to be present to it. And I think that's what these are. These are tools.
Yeah.
These are various different tools that we have in our little toolbox to use to help us stay focused, present, mindful, however you want to say, throughout your day and throughout your life, and stay consistent in that.
Absolutely. It's so interesting because I interact with a lot of different people who are like, I'm feeling down because I'm not getting what I want. And the logical progression of questions then is, well, what is it that you want? And they oftentimes struggle to answer the question.
Yep.
It's all about aim. It's like taking a bow and arrow with your eyes closed and trying to hit a bullseye. Whether you're using cards, whether you're using crystals, whatever tools are at your disposal, if you never take aim at the things that you want, if you don't take inventory of what your dreams are, or what your goals are, or what inspires or stimulates you, you can't expect it to manifest because you haven't really
asked for it or declared it.
Yeah, you're not aiming at anything. So where are you going to land?
That's why. I think you know this. I had a vision board, right? When I first started the company, I had this huge vision board, and I put on the retailers that I, dreamt of one day having. And this was back when I was literally still doing it at farmers markets. And I have actually accomplished every retailer on that vision board. And
it's amazing.
It's incredible. And that's why I think it's such a powerful tool. Do I think because I printed logos and I made clippings that all of a sudden, the universe had this intergalactic shift? I don't know, maybe. But I think what it was is that I was fully focused on achieving a goal. I knew where I was aiming. And
Yeah,
I never let that out of my sight. And I did it in a very positive way. And then I was open
absolutely.
to how it was going and realized sometimes I have to go backwards to go forwards, and realizing that that's part of the process too. That's okay. So tell me a little bit. I know we are, because you're one of our first guests. In fact, you are my first guest. So
Whee! Oh
yeah,
my God, what an honor.
well, I happen to think you are just a true, beautiful soul, and very safe for me, and just very introspective, and just brilliant, to be honest, as well. And I just love having conversations. And I said, this is who I would love. But we're developing, like, okay, what are the 3 things I want to ask at the end of every interview? So these are my 3, right? I know I forwarded them, because I don't want anybody ever to come like, well, what is she going to ask me? But it goes with why we have this podcast, right? Which is all about what I call the 3 Ps: passion, presence, and purpose. So what's your current inspiration for passion right now?
Oh gosh, it's going to have to be my orchids.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I didn't know where I was going to put this in. Little known fact that Michael is an orchid influencer. Like he has a YouTube channel that's Michael's Orchids. It has over it's close to 69,000 subscribers, and some of his videos have millions and millions of viewers. So that is amazing. You're like a closeted orchid influencer, whisperer.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a quiet part of my backstory. It's not something I really put on my business card, but it brings me the most joy. And I kind of wonder if that's why it brings me so much joy. It's not, there's no pressure around it.
It's for you.
My secret passion that I just do for my spiritual wellness.
Secret's out now. Sorry.
You're fine. But I think the reason my orchids inspire me so much is they're little microcosms of humanity. It's really interesting to see how they behave and respond to certain situations. When an orchid doesn't have the ideal conditions, it stops blooming, but it does invest in its vegetative growth. It puts down more extensive roots because it says, if I can't bloom right now, I'm going to do the foundational work to make sure that I have the energy, the support to eventually be beautiful and really bloom and display all of these beautiful attributes about myself. And it's interesting because every morning after I do my reading, I kind of walk around and I mess with my orchids and I check on them and look at their growth. It's incredibly reassuring, especially in this time, especially being an in-place shelter, to see them do the work and to see them actualize and to see them reach these incredible pinnacles of beauty, to learn to appreciate them when they're not in bloom. It's, I don't know. It's a beautiful metaphor, constant reminder. They are just so stunning. And I do think that there's something to be said when you've been growing a plant for years and you get it to bloom. These very difficult tropical plants.
They're not
the feeling
easy
of self-efficacy. No,
I am not an orchid whisperer. I'll be honest with you. I'm really good in the greenhouse. I'm not so good at that. I do find that people fall into, you can totally learn it. People fall into schools of thought. My husband, Justin, he is very much the plant cultivator. He's great with growing gardens. He's great with all of those things, that I think he has more of a passion for it. For some reason, I just choose difficult plants. It's the challenge, I think, also. I definitely think that for you. Okay, so now we know what your inspiration is and you're passionate about. What's giving you purpose right now?
Oh, goodness. I think it's something that I said earlier in this podcast. It's what's giving me purpose right now is redefining my identity, independent of tangible resources and routines and personal connections. This is a incredibly challenging time, but it's also an incredibly generative time because we are quite literally in an echo chamber with our own thoughts.
Yes.
So I think what's giving me purpose right now, what I'm really working on, is finding out who I am when I am not a gym goer, finding out who I am when I am not
constantly going.
Yeah. And that's a defense mechanism in a lot of ways. I think, who am I when I am not the national education manager? Who am I when I am not, all of the things that I do are not the things that I am. So it's really forcing me to take inventory of my personhood and say, well, now that everything's gone, what's left and who is this? And make peace with that. I think that's what's giving me the most purpose right now.
And I think it's something that we're all facing and probably not saying, but I think we have the perfect time. We were talking about this earlier. This is the perfect time to work on us and allowing the planet to work on itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing so much of that, so much evidence of beauty out there that hasn't happened in years because we're basically hitting the pause button on what we've been doing to the earth. So I love that. So I feel like we're all trying to figure out who we are and then what does normal look like for us deep down.
Absolutely.
So then what are you practicing in order to stay more present in this?
Drinking.
And that will be episode 2.
Absolutely. No, I'm joking, but I think what I'm practicing at the moment is really the art of imperfection, the art of leaving things incomplete, the art of being periodically sloppy. I
love it.
Well, it's really, really true. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm one of the people who fills my calendar and then it's like, I just don't have time to breathe. I feel so overwhelmed, but it's a product of my own creation. And it's been this way forever, and you always say to yourself, okay, once I finish this thing and once I check this off my to-do list, then that'll be the time I breathe. But the reality is I so seldom allow myself to breathe because there's always going to be something you have to add to your to-do list. Once you check something off, something else is going to take its place. So when I say practicing the art of imperfection, the art of leaving things incomplete, I mean really being at peace with the fact that the work is never going to be done. And you should just take a moment, breathe, have a drink, watch a TV show, watch a movie with your husband. It doesn't always have to be intense forward momentum. And while that is incredibly admirable, you have to temper that with something that's a little bit more inactive.
It's I'm finding it challenging for myself too.
It's hard. I've used the word defense mechanism a lot during this interview for some reason, but I do think that we hide behind busyness. Oftentimes we don't know how to be still. No. And it's the people that struggle to be still that really, really need it the most. And I will say this is a takeaway for maybe people like you and I do think it's important to customize the message because, I love the word self-care. I do. I think that they're phenomenal and I think that they're all very important. But it's interesting when you see people who are incredibly inactive and who struggle to manifest things that they want in their life say, well, I'm doing self-care. It's like, well, that's great. You should continue to invest in self-care, but maybe find more intensity, find more momentum, create a little bit more urgency in your world. So for us, maybe we need to calm down, but maybe for others, they need to
absolutely
amp it up.
I think, there's some balance here and you have to have a little bit of both. And because I think you and I are so similar in going, what's next? It's really hard to slow down. The hardest times for me, there's a reason why Monday is greater than Friday for me. You know the saying for me, Monday's my favorite day of the week. I don't love weekends. I love weekdays because I love my team. I love the activity. I love that anything and everything is possible. And by Friday, I'm like sad. There's like a true level of depression because it kind of stops. And I don't know what to do with that because I don't feel I'm as productive. And I do think this time has allowed me to take stock of that and think why is that? I've also had to learn to be okay with other people where other people are in this, and by that I mean my family. So my 20-year-old son is home from college because they basically said, okay, you're online learning. So he drove home from Colorado, and he's not as neat as I am. That's all I'm going to say.
Jacob.
Yep. So there's that. And, he's on a completely different circadian rhythm too. So I'm like, dude, what are you doing waking up at 2? And I have to get used to that. And I can't force my agenda on him. And, same thing with Emily. And then, then I've got the little one, Samaya, who's like, okay, she comes into my office at 9 a.m. Okay, can you put me up on Skype? And what's my teacher want? I'm like, oh my God, so I think it's figuring out how also to live in that right now with there being so many different personalities in my house. Wow.
Yeah.
But you know what? I do think that it's happening for a reason. I think there's a universal agenda at work, one I don't know yet, but I think we're going to find out soon.
Yeah. And it's, it's interesting because I recognize that this is an incredibly challenging time for people tactically, just in terms of survival. And one of the things that I've been hearing from some of my friends, some of my family is like, it just feels like I'm being punished. It feels like, this is so much to bear right now. I do think that there's something to be said about the fact that you're being lovingly redirected by the universe. Even your worst case scenario does not mean you're being punished. If the thing that you fear the most comes to fruition, it's because you are being gently nudged to maximize your potential in a different way. I really believe that in my heart. So
I do too.
I think it's important to, in the middle of this very destabilizing and scary and oftentimes uncomfortable time, to take stock of the fact that the universe is always trying to maximize our potential, and that one way or another we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I do. And I think that the hard part for people is they feel that they don't have any control. And the truth is we do have so much control, because you have control of how you think and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think that from that, incredible things can happen too. And even from being just in your home. I mean, look, I created this in my kitchen, this business, in a time of, a complete uncertainty for me. And so I think that there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this. But I do think it's also very difficult when you're being told you can't do something. And I agree. There's so much uncertainty financially for people. And I also know that, like you, I'm very blessed. I have a house that's safe. Not everybody has that.
Yeah.
And that can be I can't even imagine. And so I'm learning to be even though I say I'm blessed, to really count my blessings and really think about what that means, that it is a privilege to have a house that I can shelter in place with. It is a privilege to have food that I can eat and keep my kids safe in. And so what I'm trying to figure out is what will be a way for me to help those who don't.
Absolutely.
So that's what I've kind of been thinking about lately too. Well, sir, I've loved this. I had fun.
I had so much fun. It's always fun with you.
So thank you. So tell everybody who's listened to, I now know is in love with you just as much as I am. Where should they find you? How can they find you? What's the best way to interact, etc.?
I tend to be the most present on Instagram, which is at The Bearded Beauty Bible. You can follow me on YouTube, which is youtube.com/The Bearded Beauty Bible. And if you're interested in my orchids, it's Michael's Orchids.
All right, and I'll make sure all that's in the show notes. Michael, thank you so much. I loved having you.
I loved being here, and I love you so much.
So thanks for listening to episode 3 of Coming Clean with Indy Lee. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating. Of course, leave any comments and reviews that you have, and subscribe to us on whatever platform you listen to your podcast. And if you have any suggestions for upcoming guests or questions for me, you can write to me at comingclean@indylee.com. Again, that's comingclean@indylee.com. Look forward to talking to you next time on Coming Clean with Indy Lee.